Welcome back to the Talking Wolves podcast, discussing, unfortunately, another defeat over the weekend. Brighton becoming Wolves' bogey team as of late, but we'll discuss that, the individual performances as always, and we'll talk about some questions that we've had at the end of the podcast as well. My name is David Zapardi, and as always, got two fantastic co-hosts alongside me. We've got Joe from Concept Scouting once again, and Finn returning to the podcast as well. Joe, we'll start off with you, because out of the three of us, you were the only one that braved Molineux over the weekend. But how have you been keeping?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, I was there in body at least. Yeah, it was. I think I usually tend to go up for a beer on like 38, 39, as you know.
Mm.
But I think we went up on 28.
Oh no,
because it felt a bit bleak. I think I'm not sure when the goal was, but it wasn't long after the goal. So yeah, it was. I'm good, mate. I think the general feeling of still positivity, but also like the season's kind of coming to that point now where the jeopardy's kind of gone, which is, I think it's good to kind of look at things with a rational mind, that you haven't got to panic, like everyone in January saying we're still guaranteed to get relegated, even though that was never likely. But I think now it's good to look at it with a kind of fresh set of eyes and kind of without the panic, but at the same time that kind of brings a little bit of not really that much, in terms of the on the pitch stuff to really get that excited about. So yeah, it's I'm good, mate. It was I was glad to get away on Saturday, to be honest.
Yeah, well, like I said last week, I was on a stag do, so I had to watch the game back as such. Hate missing the games live. I said to Finn before we started, I just feel almost out the loop on everything. Although I've seen what's happened, because I wasn't watching it live, and I can't really sort of say and talk about how I was feeling at the time at the stadium as such. But even the aftermath stuff and the content and things like that, I just haven't consumed anything that was said. Or was
we should have done like a result reveal for you, like now, like me and Finn could have revealed the result to you 2 days
That could have been good. Just stayed off Twitter for 2 days.
Yeah, I thought about you've got social media, it's fine.
Yeah, like the FPL people do it sometimes, don't they? Do a match of the day reveal, so they don't see what points they've got in the day. That'd have been class. I could have done that. We could have both done that.
It's not doable now, though, is it? I remember being a kid, not kid, but like teenager, trying to avoid the results just so you can kind of get through to watch match of the day. Literally, group chats and social media and stuff. You'd have no. I reckon I'd get to about 5:10.
No, I have to mute. Like during the week, I'll have Wolves notifications on. I left them on obviously on Saturday because I wasn't at the game. But even they're slow. Like I knew Brighton were leading, and then I had a notification about 10 minutes later from the Wolves. I
think they've scored again.
Yeah. But yeah, group chat to the one. Like even if you're watching it at home, you have to mute every group chat. Yeah. Otherwise, I hate that. Some people I know like knowing before it's gone in. Why? My dad does that all the time. Refreshes like Google to see who scores. Like, Dad, just fucking watch the game, man.
Yeah, the one thing that gets me is when you're watching it on the Fire Stick. And the group chat starts bouncing off, and it's like,
what's going on here?
Something happened.
I have that on a Saturday, 3 p.m. if we're away, and I watch I normally watch the first half at work, second half at home, and my dad's watching Football Focus in the other room, and he'll celebrate or shout expletives at the TV, so I know something on my screen's about to happen as well. Yeah. But we had the Fire Stick Classic the other day. It was the United game when they were beating Bilbao 3-0, and they were 2-0 up. And my granddad's just sat there. He just sits on his phone. Doesn't even talk to us now. He sits on. He goes, "It's weird. It says on my phone here that Man United are winning 3-0." And everyone's like, "Oh, sound granddad, yeah, nice one for that, mate." So we knew there was about to be a goal. I think Bruno went through and scored then. So yeah, it's one of them. But Finn, like I said, I missed the game. Unfortunately, it was a little bit of a heavy one. But you had the pleasure of celebrating Bully's 60th in Benidorm with Steve Bull and obviously your dad and a number of the friends as well. How was that?
Yeah, delayed. His birthday's March, isn't it? But I think this was the first date everyone could get together. I saw him one of the is it the We Are Wolves on Facebook? Someone had put like, no, he can't be there for his birthday. It's got to be an old picture. And we're saying he's dragged it out long enough. There's been 3 parties and an effective stag do. But no, it was good fun. We were there Friday and then just got back this afternoon. So yeah, I think Joe's the one to trust here. My recollection of the game isn't great, but it was so good. I think you said you'd been to that same pub for pre-season, the Rose and Crown. They couldn't have been more hospitable. Like all the bar staff had Wolves shirts on. It was good fun. But yeah, it was a little bit. To be fair, most people weren't even watching the screen, but it would have been nice with everyone there to have won, or at least a goal would have been nice. But we had exactly the same. There was the massive screen with the Wolves game on, but dotted around, there's Soccer Saturday on, which is about 2 minutes in front. So I'm trying to not look so like you could see Brighton had scored before it even gone in. Luckily, most of them hadn't seen that either. So they were seeing it live. But yeah, it was a weird one all round, and I'm not massively confident. So I'm very glad we're joined by Joe.
I would have been interested to be a fly on the wall for the tactical analysis in the Rose and Crown. I think it would have been very interesting to hear some of the takes because I think Andy Thompson was there. He told me earlier as well.
Yeah, he was on comms. Yeah, well, it was weird. It was like having him on comms to me. I could hear him in my ear. But yeah, Bully's analysis was shoot. Why isn't he effing shooting?
That's why he scored 306 goals for Wolves.
Pretty much. Well, I was saying about Strand Larsen. He flipped it around as soon as he did that little shoot more.
Yeah,
that's all you need.
Yeah. No, but we'll jump onto the game now. Appreciate, unfortunately, for anyone that watches the YouTube stuff, there wasn't a fans wrap video this weekend, just because I'd run out of time. But thanks to Tom Parker for jumping on the review duty, and thanks to everyone that jumped on the BetMate game as well. I mentioned that on the last couple of videos on our YouTube as well. I did actually come out fairly high up. I won quite a bit of money on it, to be fair. But it was Charles 97 who won the pot overall. Loads of you won a little bit on it as well, to be fair. George didn't win anything. He just missed out, I think. So unlucky George. And Joe, for some reason, it wouldn't let you join, would it? So we'll have to get you back on the next one.
I need to have a word with the software engineers because it was. I don't know if they just banned old people from it, but it wasn't working for me.
No, we'll get you back on it. But yeah, we've got somebody a new game that we'll jump on next week, but I'm sure we'll discuss it on the next podcast as well. But Finn, we'll start off with you in terms of the lineup. We knew Dan Larsen was touch and go after Vitor's pre-match press conference, but it seems to be his trusted 11 now, isn't it? Well, trusted 10 at least. And Guedes, probably the biggest surprise in that lineup. I posted before the game. I actually liked him in that number 9 against number 9 role against Villa. He started there, but other than that, I don't think we can have many complaints on the rest of the lineup, can we?
No, and I remember him doing well against Brighton in the cup as well, or at least scored, didn't he, in the cup game? So I wasn't too angry. I thought with everything, again, I didn't see much of the press conference either, but I swear he said something about Hwang and was talking up Hwang a lot. So then to not even see him on the bench, and I thought he'd even get a start, even over Cunha. I think we'll see that before the end of the season at some point. But to not even have him, in the 18, and then Strand Larsen on the bench, but it did feel like, especially when we needed a goal, I don't think he came on till too late, and I'm so unconfident about everything I'm saying. I can feel it in my gut now, but I'm pretty sure he came on quite late. So it was one where should he have really been on the bench, but it didn't look too bad when he came on. But yeah, I'd have probably put my money on Hwang at least being involved. And Guedes, I wasn't too angry, but didn't do too much from what I remember. Someone's going to tell me now that he tried a bicycle kick from 40 yards and I missed that part. But no, I couldn't really.
It sounds like you watched the game, Finn, to me, to be fair.
But no, it wasn't the most inspiring. I think the idea of Guedes every time is way better than what I actually see. Every time I'm like, no, it'll be different this time. And it very rarely is. But no, I think whoever was up front, to be honest, we didn't have much of a sniff.
Yeah, I think sort of looking at Guedes, Joe, like I mentioned, I think he did well in that Brighton game, Finn, in the Cup. But it felt, Joe, with some of the chances that he had in the first half of this game on Saturday, it was actually quite a similar game because he got into great areas in that Cup game and just didn't. He did score in the end, but his sort of hard work didn't get rewarded. And it felt a little bit similar on Saturday because I think he had 2 really decent chances where a more confident football player probably tests the goalkeeper and potentially puts Wolves ahead. He had the first chance where Cunha whips in the free kick towards the near post where I think he doesn't quite realise that he maybe has half a second more to potentially bring it down. And then there was another chance with a fast break on the left-hand side where he picks it up on the edge of the box and sort of scuffs it. But I think a more confident football player, or even, we say Strand Larsen, who obviously wasn't deemed fit enough to start, probably puts those sort of opportunities away.
Yeah, I think so. I'm quite a fan of Guedes, and I think he would have and could have been a good kind of squad option for us, but on Saturday, I thought he was really underwhelming, to be honest. I think it almost kind of seemed like that kind of performance where everyone's resigned to what's going to happen with him, and he's going to leave. The club knows he's going to leave. He knows he's going to leave, but he has to play because he's really the closest to a 9 that we've got that's A, fit, and B, not Sasakalodzic. So, rest in peace. But the just everything felt wrong with it to me on Saturday with him. There was times where he'd kind of dropped deep onto the right, and he was playing like 1-2s with Semedo, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? Like, get up the pitch. And I know that's probably Strand Larsen's game. Strand Larsen likes to drop deep and link up, but Gedge to me isn't really that kind of player. You want him running in behind. You want him linking up further up the pitch. Whereas I don't know if it's manager's instructions or what, but it just didn't look right to me. And I think personally, if you would have said to me if Wang was fit, who'd you take? I'd have took Wang over Gedge all day long, and I'm kind of famously a fan of Wang, and I think he can offer something to us. But I thought Gedge was really poor, and I think, to be fair, when Strand Larsen came on, as Finn rightly says, kind of relatively late on. I think it was kind of on the hour, maybe slightly after that.
Yeah, it's half hour.
Yeah, everything kind of just looked. Yeah, that kind of comfort blanket that everything feels a little bit more structured and there's a little bit more of a pattern to it. So yeah, it was a strange one for me.
Even to the point, the second chance, I completely forgot about it until now, but I thought, did he hit it with his left when it was probably easier to hit it on his stronger right foot? I thought the projector had flipped or something in the pub. I was like, what is he doing? It was so strange. Yeah, it did feel like that sort of...
The one I remember is where he kind of lofted it over the keeper, tried to kind of like pop it over the top of the keeper. And it's like you say, Dave, it's one of those chances where someone who's been playing regularly, is in the rhythm of the game, or Jurgen Strand Larsen, they put that, maybe don't even necessarily score, but they
test the goalkeeper.
Test the goalkeeper and kind of at least create something from it. But I kind of felt for him on Saturday because it all kind of felt like we're getting towards the end of something that no one can stop. And I'm sure he wants to go. I'm sure the club want him to go. But because he's kind of... There's no one really like him in the squad, I don't think, in terms of his profile. I think he can be 6 out of 10 in any of them front line positions, but he can't be anything more than that in any of them.
Yeah.
Which, you're going to get 9 out of 10 from Strand Larsen. With Wang, at least he'll run. That's the minimum you'll get from him. With Gedge, he's not a top finisher. He's not going to run in behind kind of to the point where he's dangerous. He doesn't link up play that much. He can't pull wide to any kind of degree of success. So, I think Wolves as a club are partially to blame for that, because the player that I watched on Saturday was not the Gonzalo Gedge that was previous to Wolves. He's like a different player, and I do think we as a club are culpable for that.
Yeah, I think definitely probably confidence related. It was a hell of a turnaround for somebody that was almost frozen out of the plans just 2 weeks ago, and then all of a sudden he's sort of broken back in the squad and starting. I mean, you mentioned Wang there a couple of times. Vitor was very complimentary of him on Friday, but sort of said that he wasn't 100% fit, so that's probably why he missed out of the squad. But yeah, like for a player that was, you sort of publicly slated, is that the right word? He publicly said it wasn't working hard enough and, needs to change their ways. To all of a sudden to be starting a Premier League match. Yes, there's maybe nothing to play for other than league places, but you would have thought, Joe, that maybe it would have been Cunha as the 9. If Strand Larsen was fit, Cunha as the 9, then someone like Pablo Sarabia comes into the team if Bellegarde's not fit as well. Yeah,
I'm surprised we didn't see Sarabia in the starting lineup on Saturday, given the kind of subs that we made, including him, but in terms of the players that came off, I think Cunha could have played more as the 9. I may have seen something over the weekend that suggested that Vitor thought it hadn't worked when we played him there before. I felt like I read that at some point, which is fine. But, it would have been more dangerous with Cunha through the middle. And there's also, I'm sure we'll come on to the penalty, but there's a good chance if he's playing as a 9, he doesn't drop back to the edge of his own box to play the ball back. So it might have saved us.
Yeah, we'll come back to that in a sec as well. Finn, Brighton did have the goal in the back of the net, which was chalked off. Danny Welbeck, Joker, maybe touch on this in a second as well. But ball into the area, which takes a slight flick, and obviously Welbeck sort of just helps it in, really. I wasn't there to see the sort of delays as such. Finn, you would have sort of seen it secondhand as well. What are your thoughts on that? And was there a long delay sort of working this one out?
Yeah, well, I saw it in the best possible way, I suppose, because I can see what's going on. But 99% of the time, I'm in the opposite situation, and it's infuriating. But it seemed like a fairly simple one, because they seemed to, from what I could see anyway, it seemed like they agreed that he'd interfered quite quickly, and then it seemed to be the drawing of the line. So from what you could see, all they were freezing on was where Minter was when the ball was played, not was he interfering. I mean, you don't know what they're actually saying in the air, but that's what it seemed like. And then it seemed like a relatively straightforward one, especially if it's meant to be semi-automated now.
Yeah,
I don't know whether it's affected when it's those subjective ones. I don't know. But it felt, we were staring at the same picture for a long, long time. And then I like that Wolves give all the Wolves fans give the same effort, whether it goes for us or against us, don't they? I think we're the best at that. But yeah, it seemed pretty clear cut to me. I mean, I think if it was the other way around, I would try and justify why it should be a goal. But
it's very tight
in the laws,
as well.
and we've had a few of those go against us, as in the actual decision of is he interfering or not. Because the offside was very, very close. But it's gone that way all season with those sorts of ones. Ironically, just not the Bernardo Silva one. But again, I pretty much agreed with City getting that goal as well once I'd seen it back earlier on in the season. So yeah, no major complaints either way on that one.
Yeah, Joe, what do you think? I mean, you were there in the ground. What was it like in terms of the weight and frustration? Or
yeah, it was very frustrating. The stranger thing for me was after they'd scored the goal, which from my seat behind in the south end behind the goal, nothing looked, as you would imagine, wrong to me. It all looked fairly legit to me. And then it's got to have been 10 seconds after his ball hit the net. The referee's the linesman's put his flag up.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And I said to Aid next to me, I said, "What's that for? What's he doing?" Because he'd ran. It's not just that the linesman had just stood there and you could see the cogs turning and he was making a decision. He'd started to run back up the pitch, as in, well, whatever, carry on. And then he's obviously had some kind of brain fart that's kicked into life, and he stuck his flag up. And I think the kind of subjectivity and the nature of the goal and the review, for me, I haven't really got a problem with that because I can see. I was pissed off with it at the time, but then when you watch it back and think, Jesus, that's tight and it's subjective. It's almost like that the John Stones goal for Man City against us, or the goal that Kilman had disallowed against West Ham last season, where it's subjective. It's not just one player's here, one player's there. There's kind of other laws to take into consideration with it. So I didn't really have an issue with that. Yes, it shouldn't take that long, but semi-automated offside isn't there to police is someone interfering with play. It's there to say is said player offside, and as soon as it flicked through to that, it said he's offside. Jobs are good. So I do think the expectation on VAR is a little bit. I'm not a massive fan of it, but I think the expectation of what people expect it to do is kind of unrealistic. George's not here, but if George would probably use the NFL example. if there's any sort of infringement on the play in NFL, they don't make the decision within 5 seconds. It takes a degree of time, and the referees and kind of those guys in other sports have been always trained throughout their career to use these systems. We've just dropped it in on these guys overnight and expected them just to make these decisions in 10 seconds. So while I'm not a fan of referees and not a fan of VAR, I can kind of understand it. But it's millimetres, isn't it? But with Minter, from what I've seen watching it back, so I have got a degree of kind of, I do get it, but you want to start seeing these things creeping up a little bit and kind of not taking as long. Because as a fan in the ground, I said I left after I went to the bar after the goal. Half the South Bank went to the bar while they were checking the goal. So it's good for bar sales at least.
Is it sponsored in the NFL? When they do that, when it takes ages?
It depends on the decision, yeah. But a lot of the decisions are that it's referee's call and it'll go to an advert break and they'll come back.
I was just picturing that. Can you imagine that with football?
But the thing is,
subjective offside sponsored.
They're probably thought we can't physically make this decision in 10 seconds, so let's fill it. And obviously in NFL it's a lot easier because what they do every 10 seconds. But I do think there's that sliding scale of what fans want from the sport in terms of entertainment and tradition versus do they want the right decision? Because I'd much rather them take three minutes to decide whether it's offside or not and get it right than the referee just fucks off back up the pitch and they give the goal. So I think there's a bit of balance there. And I'm not a massive vindicator of VAR, but I do get it. It's humans using this software at the end of the day.
Yeah, you mentioned Joe there. I forgot to say. I think is he in Abu Dhabi, Joe? I think
he's put that in the group chat, but I've muted him to be honest with you.
He's showing off.
I'm going to ignore he exists until he comes back. I hope that I don't keep seeing photos.
Yeah, I mean, Danny Welbeck was rightly frustrated, I think. Probably down to delay. I think it was very, very tight as well. But he would have felt maybe it was justice that he managed to get the opportunity to make it 1-0. Finn, Agbadou passes it to Cunha. I don't know what he's doing. Obviously, just thinks he's got a hell of a lot more time than he does. Loses the ball, hacks the player down. Could you argue this is a red card? I suppose, in my opinion, it's a clear attempt to play the ball. So I don't think double jeopardy and stuff comes into it. But I saw a couple of Brighton fans moaning that maybe Cunha should have been sent off there.
Yeah, I wouldn't say clear. I think it was on the other foot. He does just sort of lunge in at him, but you can tell in his head he'll be going, "Oh shit, I've got to win the ball here," like because of the big mistake. But I think there's an angle again. Can't fully remember it, but from what I can remember, it did look like he just panicked and lunged. But is that right, Joe? Go to VAR for my opinion.
Yeah, no, pretty much. Yeah, that's the best summary I can give of it.
So yeah, I mean, I've took him out my FPL now, so I wouldn't have that double jeopardy on it really. But I wouldn't have been too angry if it was a red. It's just genuine attempt to play the ball, isn't it? That's the only thing that stops.
Yeah. As long as it's a genuine attempt, you're fine. And Joe, I mean, I saw that you were responding. I think Nathan Judah at the time posted that it was a poor pass from Agbadou, but I don't think it is.
No, there's nothing wrong with that pass at all. I watched it back on the off chance that maybe I was being unreasonable, which does happen fairly regularly. But I've watched it back, and Agbadou, there's no one near Cunha for a start when he plays the ball into him. And Cunha's got, as he's looking back to the goal, he's got Andre to his left and he's got Totti who's pulled wide to the right, which suggests to me tactically we've set up for that, whether it's Cunha dropping back or Manetzi dropping back, hopefully not if he's going to touch the ball, or whoever dropping back in. Everyone's in a position to allow us to kind of beat the press. So everything was set up to beat the press. We just, we've people praise teams like Brighton and rightly so for how strong they press, but a lot of teams, ourselves included, give them a hell of a lot of chances with it because such a straightforward routine. Just to if it was any other player almost, you could kind of forgive it. But the fact that the bloke's the most technically gifted player, one of the most technically gifted players in the league, let alone in our team, it's a really, really easy manoeuvre for him just to sweep the ball out to Totti or play it inside to Andre, or just give it back to Agbadou. If you feel like you're going to be under pressure, why are you holding on to it? Let it go.
Yeah.
But you could, in fairness to him, I think he's been guilty this season of maybe making mistakes in certain ways, whether it's disciplinary or whatever, and then not being able to kind of just own it. Whereas, to be fair to him straight away, his hands are up, he's looking at the South Bank and he's got his hands cupped together like he's praying. And I thought, maybe you have learned something because you know that's on you. And Jose Sarr was going absolutely mental at him.
Was he?
Yeah. When Jose Sarr goes into full like unhinged mode, he'd gone. His head had gone completely. So yeah, he knows. I don't think he'll be doing that again. I think when he gets to Man United, I think he's going to be dropping into his 6-yard box and losing the ball. So it's one of them, isn't it? To be honest with you, all that he's done for us on the pitch this season, I'll let him have that one.
Yeah, I suppose that. I mean, obviously Welbeck put the ball away, but I think that probably summed up the game and sort of what you were saying at the start of the season. I think when things like that are not so much going against you, because I think that's an error on his part, but when your sort of best technically gifted player is just having like a brain fart like that and sort of giving the ball away, you think, probably today isn't going to be our day. I think, watching back, a lot of our opportunities and getting the ball into the final third, a lot of it did revolve around Cunha. I think he still showed that in most part of the game. Obviously, he was substituted. I think Strand Larsen did come on for him around the 60-minute mark, but he had the odd opportunity. I thought he's some of the balls he played in the final third. I mean, he played the ball for Guedes. He played one for Ait Nouri as well in the second half as well, I think. So he still showed that ability. But it will be interesting to see how, over the next couple of weeks, what happens in terms of his position. But going back to what we said earlier, probably could have stayed on for a little bit longer as the number 9 role. But ultimately, he shouldn't need to be coming back there. I think sometimes he likes to come and just try and get involved a little bit more. But I say it a lot, and whenever we play teams and their strikers further back than defensive midfielders because they want to get on the ball, that's when you know your team's not playing to the best of its ability. And Cunha, in my opinion, should not be that deep to come and get the ball. You should be relying on Andre and João Gomes to start the moves from there anyway.
Well, it's interesting because I can't remember what game it was off the top of my head, but again, I think it was the Man City game, to be honest. When Cunha was playing through the middle, Vitor a couple of times was seen saying, push back up because he was dropping deep, because obviously that's naturally what he wants to do. So what he's doing on Saturday, I do not know, because I can only imagine the bollocking that he had when he went back into the changing room. But there's absolutely no need for him to be back there at all. There's just no reason for it. He's got two perfectly capable central midfielders who can distribute the ball. He's got wing backs who are high up the pitch for a reason. So why are you dropping deeper than your wing backs if they're on the halfway line? So I looked at it back, both the wing backs are sat on the halfway line, ready for the ball. So it's just like, plus, I don't think it obviously wasn't a bad pass from Agbadou, but you could argue, if you're being really critical, just get rid of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it seemed like, Finn, that just throughout the game, it seemed like there were certain players that maybe didn't know their roles, but I think that's probably wrong. But it just seemed to be a game where the players were all over the place. I mean, you use the second goal as an example. I know that Wolves are probably pushing to try and get that equaliser, but just caught out a little bit too easily, and the Brighton player just dinks it over Jose Sarr in the end, and that kills the game off pretty much. But the chances that we had and the creativity that we could have had, I think in the final third, we had that little bit of a spark, but for whatever reason, the final ball and the decision making just wasn't there. I think one of the best opportunities we probably had in the second half as well. I mean, Cunha came close, but great ball to Aït-Nouri on the left, and tries to play the ball across. So to Strand Larsen, it's intercepted. I think Van Hecker had a very good game from Brighton's point of view, but it was just that little bit of spark in the final third thing where if we had that on Saturday, I think Wolves could have potentially got something out of the game. Yeah,
it was a bit of everything from what I recall. Like, even going back to like the Leicester game, even the midfield two, Andre and João Gomes, in those 6 games have been near to faultless. But that Leicester game, it felt like they were like bouncers to the North Bank. Like, they didn't even get through midfield at any point, whereas Brighton were cutting through quite a lot, whether they'd been studying. And Belieber's going to go for big money, isn't he, as well? So it's not like they had poor players in midfield. And that Weef, was he the one that messed up for the Cunha equaliser in the reverse?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a very good game, I think.
Yeah. So I was going, oh yeah, he's useless, and he really surprised me. But all the players they brought on as well, you forget how much Brighton have spent in that last summer. The geezer that scored it was his first goal, but they'd spent a lot on him, hadn't they? All these players.
I never heard of him. Never heard of him.
Yeah, they're all in and around 30 mil, weren't they? So they've got quality players, and they've become a bit of a bogey team. I think for anyone watching, we're all in black, and I could have picked out this outfit last week and told you it'd have been a nice and depressing one. They've become a real bogey team. But yeah, at least it doesn't mean anything. I think that's the only positive. It would have been really frustrating if we needed a point or Ipswich had, I mean, that was never going to happen. But yeah.
Let's hope it doesn't kill it, because I think there's still 2 games coming up where Wolves, we discussed it last week, and we're discussing the fact that we could easily get 9 points potentially from those last 3. But I think you still look at the next 2 games. The Palace game will probably depend on how they get on in the FA Cup final at the weekend. And I think Brentford, hopefully being at Molineux, there's a little bit of a bounce for. But Joe, sort of repeating roughly that question I asked Finn, what do you think Wolves missed? Because I think they've got the ball at times in the right sort of areas, but I just don't know. Do you think that we missed Strand Larsen for the majority of the game? Was that focal point? Was there another number 10 or another creative option do you think needed to be introduced a little bit earlier?
I think we definitely missed Sarabia in the team, and we definitely missed Strand Larsen. I think it was that kind of game where just needed that extra bit of creativity, and I think it was coming down to Cunha and to Aït-Nouri. I think Aït-Nouri slightly overplaying on Saturday, I think, and I get it. If you're not playing well, you want to try and dominate, and I understand that. But I think we were missing someone to hold the ball up, and for all the odd slating of Strand Larsen I've seen this season, that he's been really good at holding the ball up statistically. He's right at the top of the list. And the ball was kind of bouncing back. So I think the combination of Menezes and Strand Larsen works and whether that's with Cunha, whether it's with Bellegarde, or whether it's with Sarabia. But you almost, when you lose one of the two, you effectively lose both of them, because Manetzi, I've been a kind of big fan of him. I think he's been a key to a lot of what we've done in terms of his work rate and what he does, and the kind of stuff that people don't see. I think clearly they don't see, because he gets slated every week. But he was poor on Saturday. It was, I think we've got to. I can say this because George's not here. But he was poor on Saturday, and I think he said that himself. He just wasn't really at the races, which I think when Strand Larsen's not in the team, he almost looks a bit lost, because he's clearly very good at following the instruction of what he's there to do, and he's been instructed to make certain runs to drag defenders away from Strand Larsen. And when Strand Larsen fills the gap, it works. It fits like a glove, and it does. Anyone who wants to watch the patterns of play back and watch Manetzi's running and how that affects Strand Larsen, and it looks brilliant. For I'm sure Gully will look at that at some point between now and the end of the season, and I'm going to make sure he does, because I feel like it's the only way.
As long as he praises Manetzi as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a really key part of what we've done. But when you take Strand Larsen out of that team, Manetzi's really just running into blind alleys then, because his defenders aren't going with him, because they know that they can stay in their shape, and they're not really going to be under threat, because they know Cunha's not one to really run in behind off the ball. He might carry the ball in behind, but they know, leave our back four, back five where it is, no problem. Manetzi's just running off into channels, which that's what he's been instructed to do. But I think it didn't really work on Saturday, which I think when Strand Larsen comes back into the team, hopefully next week, or week after. Next week, it'll be the Palace game now, isn't it? So when he comes back into the team, I think it just fits and it works. But in that case, if you lose Strand Larsen, I do think maybe it could have worked with Guedes, Sarabia and Cunha, maybe, just and be a bit more fluid, because you've got at least two of the three that are technically good on the ball. They can kind of deliver a ball. They can bring the wing backs into the game. But it just didn't really seem to work for me on Saturday, which is why I think it's so important in the summer, and I'm sure we'll come on to it. It's really important that we get a number 9 that can kind of backfill when Strand Larsen's out, because if you lose one player and it affects your setup to that degree, we're never going to win any games, are we?
Yeah. I was just trying to think, and I know it's easy for me to compare, but I was trying to think of what worked well against Villa. And it was Sarabia who started in the front three against Villa as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was Cunha, Sarabia, and Guedes, wasn't it?
And Guedes, yeah.
Yeah. So,
it just
I suppose saying that, you wouldn't drop Manetzi though, would you?
I would, yeah. That's exactly what I'd do.
Right, okay.
Only
if
in the
Strand Larsen
event
wasn't playing.
If Strand Larsen's not playing, because
both
you've got
either.
yeah. And the problem is, I don't think he was absolutely terrible. I don't think he had a good game on Saturday. But the problem is, people then feel like they're vindicated when they say how shit he is. If he has one bad game in a run of 6, and when I say a bad game, I don't mean he's not scored or he's not assisted. I mean, he's done his job that he's been asked to do, and he's been a 6 or 7 out of 10, which is fine. That's what he's there to do. We've said this all season, or at least since January. Not every player in your team is going to create 15 assists every season and score 20 goals. You need players in there who are going to do a job. And if you look at someone like Matt Sweefer for Brighton, he's a perfect example. He's played centre midfield. He's played right back. I think he's played at centre back. I'm sure I've seen him drop into centre back. Some players are just there to be a team player, and I think that's exactly what Marshall Manetzi is. It's what Bellegarde is, to be honest with you. But Bellegarde's probably just got better output so far this season. But he's done his job. He's done what he's been asked to do. And as soon as he slips slightly off of that, and Saturday's a good example, then he gets thrown to the wolves. Literally. So it's I think it's an interesting one in terms of how we use him between now and the end of the season, and then what next season looks like, whether it looks like with Manetzi in the team or not.
Yeah, will be very interesting to see his future. In terms of a positive sign though, Finn, we saw Matheus Cunha come on, the youngest player to make his Premier League debut for Wolves, overtaking Anthony Ford, I think, which got to be like 14, 15 years ago. It's annoying as such, because I've been really keen to see Matheus Cunha play, especially for the first team. I really wanted last year Wesley Okudua to come on, because I think he would have been one of the youngest ever Wolves players as well. And then Enzo Gonzalez made his debut when I wasn't there last year, so I missed that, albeit it was only a few minutes. But I mean, Joe as well, you could get involved in this. Was there anything of note by Matheus Mane, or was it, did you just come on and that was pretty much it?
Well, firstly, I have an admission to make, because I was the other side of the subway when Matheus Mane came on. I heard it over the tannoy as we were walking back to the pub. So
it was 89 minutes, so I can't expect that he did much.
So I can guarantee,
the most reliable?
Finn saw more of this than I did.
From what I remember, yeah, it was. I never like it. I don't know if you had it on Football Manager, Dave. Like if you're giving someone a debut, I'd like to give him like 90 minutes. I know it's not like real football, but in case they did something, it's like on his debut. So it always annoys me when they come in like the 89th minute. Like at least give him, like bring him on like 75. But obviously they're doing it for a reason. I mean, they normally have him on the bench for 10, 15 odd games, don't they? And it's not realistic. But he ran around a lot. I don't think that's from what I remember. He was chasing after every ball, and as the game was sort of coming to a close, it was refreshing, but didn't get much chance on the ball. Bless him. I remember there was one where it felt like if it was Cunha over there, they would have passed to him, but they just completely ignored him. Bless him.
Yeah.
But I haven't really seen him kick a ball. But he was very, very highly rated. Great name for a footballer as well. So I'm really, really hoping that one works. And I heard on commentary they're saying he's going to represent England, isn't he? Despite
he got, if you
Portugal,
remember,
England and somewhere else he played for.
Yeah. He got named in the Portugal and England under-18s teams, or on the same international break. But he has been representing England. I think he was born in Lisbon. I should know this because he has got another nationality. I can't think where it is. I'll have a look in a minute. Joe. I mean, nice to see him come on. Vitor said after the game that he believes he's going to be part of the first team picture next season, which is huge for a player of that sort of age. But it's no surprise that Wolves are looking to get him on a pro contract, Joe, as well. I suppose them putting him on is saying, please sign it. Look, we're giving you a chance in the first team.
He's of Bissau Guinean descent. So that's the other country. In addition,
Eusebio Banquesi vibes, mate. If you
exactly,
know
exactly. Well, he's already got more first team minutes, I think. In Premier League. What was the question? Sorry,
pro contract and him being part of the first team next year.
I think we've said this before. It almost means more to the club to get someone like that signed up and demonstrate that there's a pathway for players in the academy to come through the academy, no matter how late they came into the academy. And Matheus Mane, I think, came into the academy relatively late because I think he was at Rochdale.
Yeah, he only signed about a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah, when I say I think he was, I just saw it on Google. Yeah. But so I think that's really it's important to demonstrate to other players in the academy that you don't need to go and leave Wolves and drop down to a championship club in the academy to actually progress. And I think Vitor's got a history of doing this with players. He did it with Kadioglu. He's done it with Ardagula. And I'm not saying for a second that Matheus Mane is at the level of either of them. Obviously, we hope that he is. But I think it's important to demonstrate that, and it's a culture and an ethos that you've got to bury into the club. And I think that's a real big tick in the box for Vitor. And I said a few months ago on Twitter, and I got shit for it, for saying that there's going to be one or two players out of the kind of academy that are going to get minutes between now and the end of the season. And to be honest with you, that's not even particularly to vindicate any of the players or not. It's just because I knew that he would do it. I knew that he'd throw somebody in because that's just what he does. Because then what you'll have over the summer is lads coming through the 21s, and we're going to think, if you take Danny Angel as an example, I personally don't think he'll be in the first team setup for pre-season. I'm certain of it.
Especially will as well. I think if he's fit.
Especially early in pre-season, because we've only got one fit number 9. I'm sure Sasha will be back for pre-season, and hopefully, touch wood, that he kind of stays fit. But they'll be in and around the setup, and it gives them an opportunity. I'm not saying for a second that they're going to be starting Premier League games next season, because I don't think they will be. But it's that extra carrot to dangle in front of these players to say, it's great playing in Premier League 2. They're playing a relatively good standard of football for the age group that they're in, but these lads want to be playing first team football. That's how they've got to the point that they have in their career, because they're ambitious and they want to push on. So I think to say Matheus Mane has got minutes, and I'm sure he'll get more minutes now in the last 2 games of the season, because it'd be stupid not to, really. I think it sets a really good precedent then for for the future and kind of not just players that are already at Wolves when they're signing players for the 21s or for the 18s. They can say, case in point, this lad's got Premier League minutes, and I know that's the metric they use, and we're bottom of the league by an absolute mile for players that come through the youth team that actually play minutes. And some clubs like Brentford kind of cheat their way to it by buying players that like 19 and then putting them in. But we've said this season the academy setup at Wolves in recent years has been absolutely woeful. So it definitely seems like they're making kind of inroads on that, and Matheus Cunha is a good kind of a good flag to put in the ground to kind of pin to that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's been, I just don't think the quality of the 21 team. They always remain fairly competitive, to be fair, especially with they're playing. They use much younger players than they need to in the 21 setup as well. You know, they tend to use like 18, 19-year-olds. You know, other clubs will use those players, 2021, and even overage players as well. So I think Wolves, there's obviously an idea to it, but definitely, you know, there's not been enough players that I've looked at or seen, and I think, he's gonna stake a place in this team. But really excited about Mane. I think he's miles above any one of his, you know, in the under 18 setup, for argument's sake. So it's nice that he's given the opportunity, and hopefully we see him get some more minutes as well. Obviously, highly, you know, promising footballer as well. But Wolves then defeat. We'll go on to the final two games. The Palace game, obviously, we're not playing it this weekend. It's going to be midweek next week, so we'll probably try and get a podcast in between the Palace and the final game of the season against Brentford as well. But we will move on to the questions as well. I've had quite a few questions to finish us off. So, Ad Sidaway, was Saturday a reality check that we're still a long way off being a top half team? The run we went on, we only beat the 6 teams below us. Came up against 2 decent top half sides since, and we've lost both. Finn, I suppose there's some element of truth in this, but at the same time, I don't think you can judge Saturday's performance a massive amount. I think, like Joe said at the start of the pod, you know, I think there's little to play for. Don't want to say the players are on the beach, because I think, you know, they probably showed enough quality, especially against City last week, that they're probably not. But I think there's going to be an element of truth in this, but I wouldn't completely agree with it, I suppose.
No, I listened to, I think it was Gary Neville after the Liverpool game, and said that you can just see there's a difference when players are fighting for points. And I guess we were fighting for a couple of goals. Mm-hmm. You can sort of tell very, very slightly. And you like to think that they won't and your team won't. And we've been in that situation quite a lot in the last few years, haven't we? Not been able to look up or down, really, in those last few games. And it rings around in my head when you're going, oh, for the first time, we might be able to end the season well, and now I can just foresee 4 straight L's in a row. Yeah, so it'd be nice to pick up a point in one of these 2 games at least. I don't think, can Brentford still qualify for Europe in that final game?
I think they can.
Yeah. So that one, it's not looking great. And Palace, you might get something there because they might have rotated. I mean, they've got to go all out for it, haven't they? So, every part of me is thinking there's going to be four red L's to end the season after we completely jinxed it. But again, if you'd have said this in January, you'd have gone, yeah, fine, we'll lose them all 5-0. Because I know, looking back, you're like, why were we worried? But I was really, really genuinely worried. So it's not a celebration. It's not exactly an open bus parade end to the season. But yeah, I'm not even at both the games. I was saying to you before, I wasn't meant to be, but yeah, I'm not even at both. So I'm certainly on the beach. So if they are, as you say, we want Mane to get a few minutes. I want Rodrigo Gomez to start one of these games as well. So maybe just see it as an opportunity for stuff more like that. But yeah, it's the same with, I sent to you, didn't I, when we had won those 6 in a row, and it's an unfair stat, but it was the 6 teams below us. But obviously us beating those teams resulted in it eventually being those 6 teams below us. But there is a stat in there somewhere that we have played the poorest teams and teams that had their attention elsewhere, with United and Spurs, etc. So maybe slightly, if it is 4 hours at the end of the season, you might go, okay, maybe it is a bit of a reality check. But I still think I saw enough in those 6 games, and there was still a decent level of opposition in those, that I'm still pretty confident for next season.
Yeah, even the City game, I think they showed enough quality as well, Joe. Like I said, I think there's the truth the answer to this question probably lies somewhere in the middle, doesn't it? I think.
Well,
Yeah,
as with most things, and as Finn says, the more teams you beat, the more likely that there is for there to be teams that are below you. So
Yeah.
6 weeks ago, if we were playing Man United and Tottenham, they would have been above us. So it's I think that's the key thing to take in, and I think if you take the tangibles out of it and you take the results out of it, are we going into games now expecting to lose them? No. So that there's a real positive there, and even if we lose the next two, there'll still be, I think, a positive vibe around it in terms of the fan base and what we're looking forward to next season. I think even if you put Liverpool or Arsenal or the Chelsea's or Forest and that these teams who've done really well this season in front of us now, I wouldn't be instantly going into that game thinking we're going to get beat. I think we're going to be in every game that we've been that we're playing. And I think at the start of the season that wasn't really the case. It didn't feel that way. We were losing games narrowly, but it was almost losing an inevitability to it. The Ipswich game is a good example. So I think no fans asking for us to win 6 games in a row or 8 games in a row towards the end of the season. They just hope that they're wishing for the hope that they can win games or that we can maybe avoid defeat in these games. So I think we'll win at least one of these 2 games. But personally, is my approach. I think Glasner will go full strength because he went full strength at the weekend ahead of the final. So I think he's just he likes that momentum. I heard him interviewed over the weekend. He likes them. He likes the players to have momentum. And the thing is, if they do get beat on Sunday, they'll want to put it behind them and move on and maybe try and beat us on Wednesday. So I do think these games are both there to be won. Brentford are better at home than they are away. So I think there's reasons to be optimistic. And at the end of the day, if we can go into both these games and try and win them, if we draw one, as long as we look like we're putting a bit of fight in. And we're not writing them off when we read the odds before the game like Gary O'Neill did, then we're happy, aren't we? I think.
Yeah, I hope we get something. I think I read a stat the other day that we've matched the most goals we've scored in a modern Premier League season as well. So if we score one more goal, it's our best goal scoring season in the Premier League.
No goals are scored for the last 2 games.
Yeah. So, I wonder what a 6-fold would have been on that. Just talking about the odds of those 6 games, it'd been mega, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
What was to win all of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would have got some good odds on that,
Especially at the start of it, because we would have been slightly out of form, wouldn't we? So,
yeah,
odds would have been crazy.
If anyone can find that out, I don't know if you can look back at historical odds pre-match. There probably is a way to do it, but
and you'd also need the odds for United, but 4 or 5 weeks before, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, true,
yeah. I don't know, unless you've rolled them. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, that would have been nice. Amar's music show, we seem to be linked with far more up-and-coming players from South America compared to ready-made Premier League players, which I think we need more of. Do you think we will be signing some more ready-made Premier League players this summer, or will the majority be young players? Well, I think it depends what you mean by ready-made Premier League players. Are you talking about players that have got Premier League experience or players that are just good enough for the Premier League? Because I think if you look at all of our current best players, Cunha, before he came to Wolves, wasn't ready-made Premier League player. Strand Larsen wasn't. Well, let's talk experience. Sorry, Cunha hadn't. Strand Larsen hadn't. Andre hadn't. João Gomez hadn't. Agbadou hadn't. So yes, they played at top levels, which I think Joe, there's probably going to be a mix in the summer where Wolves have. I mean, you did a great video which is up as a podcast if people want to listen to it, but on YouTube as well with Gully and Dan Butler talking about this. The homegrown is a area that has to be looked at in the summer, regardless for Wolves. But I don't think it's just solely about Premier League experienced players. I think there's players that can come into the Premier League if they've got experience in other top flights.
Yeah, I said on the video with Gully and Dan that the whole Premier League experience, in inverted commas, thing it's bullshit, really. If you look at Agbadou, he's walked into the Premier League having never played, in the Premier League, which doesn't mean anything. He's just not played in the Premier League. He's played in League One. I'm not going to try and pronounce the French. Finn can do that for me. But he's got no experience in the Premier League, and he's been one of the best, if not the best centre back in the league statistically since he came in. So I think it varies by position, obviously. And I think if you look at Enzo Gonzalez is a good example. What he did at Libertad, having scouted him after he'd been linked, and we did a bit of work on him, Dave, in terms of what he looked like. I looked at him and thought, yeah, he could probably do a job in the Premier League, but he's proven that he couldn't, whether that's injuries or combination of things or managers not fancying him or whatever it might be. So I think being Premier League ready can be any number of things. I think if you're a physical player, you've got an advantage. If you look at Joe Gomez and Andre and Agbadou, these players who've not played in the Premier League, they fit in. If you're a technically gifted player, I remember when Aït-Nouri came in from France.
Took him a while.
He's great. He's always been great on the ball, but he's needed to learn maybe that the speed of the game's a little bit quicker, and that's what all people who come and play in the Premier League, that's what they say. They're not used to the speed, which is important, but I don't think it's absolutely fundamental. I think going back to Amar, because I know for me, Amar's questions every week are brilliant. To be fair, so it's if we're doing end of season awards, Amar gets my contributor of the season. But that I do think we'll be dipping into South America, and I do think we'll be dipping into South America for players to play in the first team next season, because what we've done in that market in the last 18 months is bring probably 120 million pounds worth of central midfielders in for 30. So the club will look at that, and straight away, if it's just from a financial perspective, they'll look at that and think, well, this is an opportunity to make money, and there's various midfielders that I think could still fit into our team alongside Joe Gomez and Andre to kind of complement them. But I think if we're after a wing back, there's plenty of wing backs in South America that I think could slot in, and obviously we'll be looking at this in the part 2 of the recruitment video. But yeah, I hope it is, genuinely I do, because I think it's a real. It sounds daft saying Brazil and Argentina are untapped kind of for recruitment in football, but only in recent years have people looked in the Premier League to recruit directly from South America. I think there's players, Thiago Almada is a good example. He's playing in the MLS, and then he went to play in Argentina, and then he's at Lyon now. And that journey,
he was rated for years, wasn't he?
Football manager.
That journey of players is like a traditional journey of we won't sign you for a top league straight from as a 18, 19-year-old. We'll see how you get on in another league. Whereas I think what we did with Joe Gomez, and to be fair to Andre, we were the third Premier League club to be heavily linked with Andre. That deal was on for 18 months to Fulham and to Liverpool. So I think it would make a lot of sense to do that. But the way the scouting team's expanded at Wolves, and obviously the way it continues to, I couldn't really put my finger on where we're going to recruit from, because Enzo Gonzalez has been taken from the Paraguayan league, and when we signed him, he was I don't think we explicitly said that he was going to be going to the academy. He was a first team option. He was on the bench pretty much immediately after we'd signed him when he was available. So yes, I do think we'll be looking at South America this summer.
The hope will be if João goes for 50, 60 or whatever next year, and then you sign another 3, 15, 20 million pound players, and you just keep that conveyor belt going. Even was one of the ones we've been linked with 17 as well, Dave, because I know, like with Fabio Silva, he's now homegrown for us, isn't he? If we get them in early enough,
you need that, and I think that would be the key. So that's what I was trying to think, that some of these players that we are linked with from South America. There was even a lad from Ukraine today who played once for the Dynamo Kiev first team. But the 17, 18-year-old olds are probably the area the Wolves will want to go for, because again, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. I think he plays for Fluminense or Flamengo, and he's scoring a lot of goals in the 21s or the under 20s in Brazil, but he hasn't played much first team football yet. But I was trying to think, is there many examples of that? And the one that popped into my head straight away was João Pedro before he moved to Watford. Obviously now at Brighton, he didn't play he was suspended on Saturday against us, but he'd signed for Watford before he'd even played a first team game in Brazil. Between him signing, I think he was still in Brazil for another 6 months until he actually eventually came to England. So he did play a bunch of first team games then. But I was just thinking, has a English team or a Premier League team taken the punt on a player that early? And it will be interesting to see if Wolves do that, because a couple of the players, obviously extremely highly rated. I suppose Pedro Lima didn't play much. He didn't play much top league. He was
playing in Serie B in Brazil.
Yeah,
Pedro Lima was, and he wasn't even the first choice wing back.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting if he kicks, because I think he looks very decent every time he's played. I'm really hoping that he breaks through and gets more football. But these are the type of signings where, Joe, like you said, if you can cut out the middleman of said player going to the Netherlands or going to France or Portugal, Belgium, that's where, as a club, you will reap the benefits a hell of a lot more.
I think I know we were linked with Mastertuono, weren't we? The lad, the 17-year-old lad. That's kind of, if he signs for us, it's an absolute miracle. If I'm honest with you, that's it. That he's got Man City.
It'll be interesting though, because obviously before I let you finish, I do wonder if, because of how we did with, say, Pedro Lima Friday, we say we can offer him, say, look, you're going to come here and play first team football straight away in the Premier
That
League.
didn't happen.
Whereas, but like in general, but he's Master Tuan is obviously playing first team football now. Whereas at other clubs, it might take him 3 or 4 years before. Like I think I saw a rumor that he wanted to wait till Real Madrid come in for him. But is he going to be playing first team football, straight away?
Well, I think if you take, we were linked with Vladimir Brashko from Dinamo in January, and the reason why that, by all accounts, didn't go through is for a number of reasons, but one of them was we couldn't guarantee that he'd be a starter every week, which is understandable given the position that he would have been playing. He'd been playing as a six, which there's only one six that's going to be playing for us, for the foreseeable, as long as he's here with Andre. But I think that's something that the next level of clubs up can't really do that. I think the top six and maybe the Villas and Newcastles of the world, their first team 11 is absolutely nailed on for the next 18 months. You can't really, because their recruitment's been so strong in recent years. Whereas with ours, because our model's so kind of, it's based on turnover of players, we have to sell 1 or 2 players for big money every summer to operate, which means there's always a first team slot, at least one of them, maybe 2 every summer. So I think someone like Macedonia could go into that position in advance of the midfield at 17. He's good enough. He's probably too good to be playing for us, if I'm honest. But if we can do that and say, listen, if you go to Man City or to Chelsea, you'll get big wages, but you won't play. And you might sit on the bench for 18 months and end up at Strasbourg or end up at God knows where. Whereas we'll bring you in and you're playing against the same teams as you would for Man City. He'd be on good money still. It's not like we're going to be offering him 15 grand a week, although I'd take 15 grand a week myself. I do think there's a kind of stepping stone there. I know fans don't like it because it's kind of submissive, isn't it? But we've got to, I've said this every week, we've got to understand where we sit in the chain of command and where we sit as a club. And we always read the comments, and you see people with a valid opinion that they don't want the club to be a selling club permanently. But you've got to look long term. We have to sell these players to operate, given PSR.
With this board, with how Fosa want to operate, exactly.
And it's a shame, but at the same time, it's sensible. And I know people don't like sensible, but in terms of recruiting someone like Macedonia, if you recruited him for, I think we were talking 15, 20 million was the fee, wasn't it? If you recruited him for 15 million quid, there's absolutely no chance on this earth that he goes for any less than 30 million quid when we sell him. And you've got to look at that as logical. I know it's boring, but from a recruitment perspective, there aren't many clubs. Look at Villa. Villa have got Kamara's got to go at some point because he wants to make the step up somewhere. With Newcastle, I can't see the likes of Bruno Guimaraes and Isak staying there forever. That they're going to want a step up. So it happens anyway. You might as well just allow it. Cunha's come in. It's a bit different because we signed him for 50 million to get him through the door. But we're still going to make £50 million profit on him within 2 years. Joe Gomez will turn him over for double what we signed him for. Andre probably 3, I would say. So I think it's sensible, and it's not ideal, but we've got to kind of be glad that we get to see these players play for Wolves from my perspective, because we play good football. Players can come and play for Wolves. Know they're going to get games. Know they're going to be playing a progressive style of football. We're not. No offense to Forest, but if you're a creative footballer who wants to go and play for Forest, and you got 35% possession every week, that comes into it as well. So I think we need to diversify in the way we recruit, so that they're obviously on with that now.
They've got a couple of they signed one of the wingers that we were after, didn't they? Forest, is it Ramon Sosa?
Ramon Sosa, yeah.
I saw. I think he's got a couple of goals this season, but I've not heard his name a hell of a lot.
Shout out Dean Marsden, because every time Ramon Sosa comes on the pitch, I feel a little bit of Dean now die inside, because we were pushing him so hard to kind of, because
he loves the South American football, doesn't he? Yeah.
Anyone who needs kind of knowledge on South American football, Brazilian football in particular, talk to Dean, because there's not much that he doesn't know, in fairness to him.
Bless him. Quick, when we mentioned players moving on as well, Ryan Aitanori, Ronan Gibbons said Ryan Aitanori signing with a new agency, signalling he's leaving, which I don't which I don't completely agree
No.
with, but I'll come back to in a second. Signalling is leaving and already looking like losing Semedo and Cunha. He's losing 3 crucial first-team players in one summer, too big of a hole to fill. I don't think that would necessarily mean he's leaving. Him changing agency, the agency may well mean he thinks he can get a better deal. Benefits for him long term. May have different clientele long term. But Joe, I mean, very quickly, you might have more knowledge on this than I do. But I don't think that yes, maybe on the face of it looks a little bit suspect. But I don't think that means that he's going to be leaving.
No, I think he's signed for Stella, and Stella are a kind of probably market leader. They're where you go if you want to. It's more brand marketing than kind of I'm off. I want to go and sign for Liverpool, so I'm going to employ a new agency to do it for me, because to be honest, he could have done that with his current agent. So I think a lot of it's around brand marketing, and then also there's nothing to suggest at this point that it's for anything other than to negotiate a new contract with Wolves.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they do. So I think there's probably more work to be done. And again, this is really boring, but from a brand perspective for Ryan Aït-Nouri, I do think there's probably more there for him as an individual, given his style of play and the way he's an appealing footballer to watch, isn't he? So I think I wouldn't read too much into that just yet. But obviously, if we did lose all 3 of those, then yeah, it would be a bit of a shame. But let's worry about that when it happens.
Yeah, we'll have one more question. We've had loads of good questions this week, guys. So sorry that I've not been able to ask them all. Finn Wilmod, he says, of all the players that have been at Wolves and gone on to do fairly well elsewhere, which one would help this team out most now? So the players he mentioned: Trincao, Vitinha, Goncalves.
I'm glad Finn's got this one.
Yeah, maybe Gibbs White could be
yeah, that came
maybe
to mind straight away. Can you imagine Vitinha, Andre, João Gomez midfield?
Jesus.
Yeah.
Your passports. I'm trying to think where are we weakest? Goncalves seems to. I haven't heard much about Goncalves really in the last couple of years.
I'd shout Neto there. I think Neto could in this current team with the lack of sort of biting our front three at times. I think a Neto.
I do think he could play as that 10 off the right
So
as
do
well,
I as well.
cutting inside 100%.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the big, or even the ones that didn't go for much but have now gone on to, like Vitinha's the one.
Ruben Vinagre. Filifo Swahili.
I really thought Vinagre was going to be the one. I think Pedence would have. I'm just looking over at the shirts I've got over there. Do you remember that little Pedence shirt, Dave? It's hanging up over there. Have a lovely time in the tent.
I'm looking at my Campana shirt.
Yeah.
There, mate. That's what I'm looking at.
What have I got behind me? Connor Cody, Shift Agbadu out wide.
Yeah.
I think Vitinha, that excites me a lot.
I think just in terms of current net worth and like market value.
But did we let him go? Technically, yeah, he was never ours. Was
he has mentioned that to me. Any players that have sort of we've missed out on, maybe be the better way.
There's so many ways that you could get a full team, a team that'd win the Champions League of players that we were interested in. Gyökeres and Ekitike up front in the last couple of years.
Bellingham.
Yeah.
I might do a video over the summer of like there's some brilliant, like if you find the tweet when he was at Birmingham and Wolves are linked with Bellingham, and the responses to that were brilliant, saying we don't need another player for the 21s. Grasshoppers can sign another player.
But you say that even Vitinha at the time, there's still a kind of portion of our fans that for some reason can't allow themselves to be open to the fact that there's absolutely no way on earth we should have. The fact that we didn't sign him is pathetic. Anyone who watched him could see that.
Did he actually come out? Because to me, when we signed him, I was like, I have never heard of this player. Like normally the Portuguese players, you hear a little rumble about them, or I'd heard of Fabio Silva, I'd heard of Pedro Neto, I hadn't, to be fair. But Vitinha, I was like, that is just like a random name generator in Portuguese. Like I'd never heard of it. Had there been rumblings about him?
Well, speaking of Vitinha, Finn, as a good friend of Vitinha, I've met him at Legoland at Disneyland last year. Yeah, for about 12 seconds. His old man, and I think I told Dave this at the time, his old man actually said that he was open to staying at Wolves initially, but by the January, it had been made quite clear that he wasn't going to sign. And I think there was an interview with Marcel recently.
Marcel and Saïs made comments on him,
Yeah, where they said in the January he was saying he was going to go back to Porto over one season and he'd go and sign for like one of the biggest clubs in the world. So, but I don't know why. I think it's because would have been however many years since the game. The highlights of the Brighton game from during COVID came on the other day.
Couple of days
with
ago,
Gibbs White scored and Vitinha was in midfield. And even then, like when you watch the highlights, you can just tell like how classy he was. And I think sometimes Wolves fans or fans in general look back and think, "Oh yeah, I said this at the time and I was definitely right." Whereas literally just go back and watch a game of Vitinha playing for Wolves is another level. So
it was just the right player, wrong time. I think.
Yeah,
in terms of, but I think the same with Morgan Gibbs White as well. He just was a player that was clearly a really a good number 10, and just Nuno never really played with that system for a prolonged period of time.
Did you see the cross he put in for Wood yesterday?
No, I've not seen those.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Like we saw him do some technically great things for Wolves over the years. To be honest, and I think the Chelsea game, wasn't it, where he came on and kind of changed the game.
That was one of his first Premier League games.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. But right player, wrong time is a good way of looking at it. But I think the fact that he'd come through the youth team, it's almost like when you start a job as a kid and you feel like you've got to leave because you've got to push yourself because you're always going to be the kid.
Yeah,
and I think he's gone to Forest and he's a. Although I did say someone posted he had 2 speeding fines that someone's posted online today for doing stupid amount of miles on the motorway. So maybe he hasn't grown up that much.
Yeah.
But I think you could always tell technically he looked like he was always going to be a player and probably always going to be a Premier League player.
Yeah, well, the front, was it the front four for that game? Because we played a back four in that game against Brighton during COVID. I think it was Adama, Vitinha, Gibbs White, and Fabio Silva.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like someone said, how did Nuno keep us up this season? Because the team was like, at the time, was that flipping heck. But that's just pure like nostalgia. That front four, like
even the
first, I would die for that front four now. I think.
I know.
Was it 2 seasons on, or it might have been? I think it was that Leeds game, and we lost, but the front four was Pedence, Neto, Gibbs White, Hwang, and it was just pure vibes.
The first game of the season.
Leeds.
When Nuno stuck the fingers up at Jesse Marsh. Yeah.
That was Bruno. Yeah. Oh
Bruno,
yeah.
sorry.
Bruno.
Sorry. It was
Bruno
when Morgan Gibbs White's dad was scrapping in the away.
That was it. That was one of his last.
But we went in front. It was after like 2 minutes, wasn't it? I was like, oh my god.
Pedence scored over a kick, didn't
he? Yeah. Oh wow. Those few minutes were fantastic.
Yeah. I thought we were going to win the league in the first 5 minutes. And we were awful the rest of the game. Yeah. There we go, chaps. We've somehow made one of the worst games of the season into a really nice long pod.
It's all down to Amar's music show, mate.
Yeah, big up Amar each and every time. Thanks for all the other questions. Sorry, guys, that we didn't manage to ask them all. But yeah, we'll be back after the Palace game, and then for the end of season pod as well after the Palace. After the Brentford game, sorry. Joe, where can people find you if they wish?
At Concept Skating on X and Instagram now. I'm trying to post more on Instagram, so bear with me.
Finn, what about you?
At Finners everywhere. There's a social media ban on any Benidorm pictures, so you won't be seeing any of those. But
thank God.
I'm at Dave as a party everywhere. For those who did guess, someone came very, very close in the comments to guessing what we were dressing up as for the Otley run, but I'm not going to reveal it on here still. You'll have to have a good search, see if you can find it. We're at Talking Walls.
DM me, I'll send you photos.
We're at Talking Wolves everywhere. Keep up to date with the latest Wolves news. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube and hit that like button. If you're watching or listening, on Apple or Spotify, be sure to leave us a 5-star rating. But until next time, guys, look after yourselves. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we'll see you on the next pod.